Today we're talking about Star Wars, the High Republic, and the tomfoolery that's going on with it, and what we think about it in different elements comparison. A document was released. I actually thought, to be honest, I saw this come out, and I thought it was someone making fun of the High Republic, and then it turned out, when I looked it up, it was actually on the actual High Republic Star Wars website blog. So it is not fake. Like I said, it's hard these days because so many things are said and released, and I think that, oh, this is obviously someone trolling. And then it turns out it is not somebody trolling. It's an actual concept, idea, material. And this is another example that, not the worst that we've seen, but definitely one of the ones.
It almost, when I originally heard them saying Star Wars, the High Republic, what I kind of thought was it was going to be another James Franco, Pineapple Express or Your Highness. You know what I mean? Star Wars, the High Republic. That's what they're doing.
Yes, but it's worse than that. So, the Star Wars, most people probably know, but just a quick summary for people who don't. Since now the sequel trilogy is done, they are now moving into doing a new series or set of series, or pretty much from what they said in the reveals, it's pretty much a spattering of material and kind of throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks. And so with this new era they're working
in
on,
literature, correct?
Yes,
I didn't see anything
it's all
there
literature.
actually being any movies or TV shows or animated shows. It's all
literature, yes,
novels,
books,
child's books, comic books, novels. So again, the whole, like you said, smattering between all these different things. Where, I mean, unless you have children or you really care enough, it's like, who's going to buy every single one of those things to get the full picture?
Yeah, it's definitely
this was already
geared.
my first detractor.
Yeah, it's definitely geared to be its own thing, like just to put feelers out there and see if your stories make sense and last longer.
A character that might stick and then make something more of them.
Yeah, they're looking for their next Ahsoka Katano type character or something that nature where they're like, oh, and they own it fully. Essentially,
exactly. Yes.
They own the story to it. But
yeah, no George Lucas connections.
Exactly. Yes. They start out with a mistake. I think their first mistake in this is doing a prequel era story again. I think going back only. I think I'm glad they're not going back to doing.
I think the time frame of how far they're going back is my problem. Only 200 years is really not much within the galactic time frame.
No, and Yoda's still alive in the story. I think that's part of it.
You'd have Plagueis already dealing what he's dealing with getting Sidious ready within 100 years coming from it. So it's like it's not far removed enough for me to already say, like, if you're gonna go prequel, then go before the old Republic, before Revan's time frame. Even if you're gonna go back, then go back.
I would like to see them go forward. To be honest, again, it's my thing across the board. Just go 1,000 years in the future so we can move past this, and then you can.
And then you can create your own world.
Yeah, then you can do whatever you want. Anything can happen. Versus going back and being like, oh, we gotta tie it into Coruscant. You could go 1,000 years in the future and say, Coruscant's not even a power anymore. They could be a sub-power or something. They could be, you want your dystopia? There's just, older dystopia type thing.
Right.
And that kind of stuff inside of it. So they started revealing kind of this base level of the characters. And I know you have also, I'll pull it up here. We both have the actual original material on this, where they started putting kind of their, I would assume their new lead characters. So we start out here with Avar Kriss. She's the worst one of the bunch when it comes to what they're describing and why I thought this was a parody. Especially because the writing and what the description is also really cringy.
It's bad.
The last line here where she's the best of the best, just shows that they're trying so hard to create another Rey character or something. And again, this doesn't even make sense.
Well, what's worse is I was going to say, as you go through, what's even worse is a lot of the other character descriptions for the next 4 that they're going to show. A lot of them then are still going back and explaining their connection to Avar as their descriptions, which I found kind of funny. But second to that, what was I going to say? I was going to say
There's the full list of all the characters there too on the screen.
Yeah, and then our mixed versions of them. I was gonna say, every time I hear the best of the best, you know what I always think of? I always think of it's Men in Black, the first one, where you like everyone's like, you're supposed to be the best of the best, and Will Smith makes the thing, we're the best of the best, sir. Kind of always like making the extra joke of it, and it's like at this point, it's like hearing the best of the best. It's like, like you're already gonna go there, but like I said, it's not even anything for Star Wars, but it always elicits my reaction that we're like, we're the best of the best, sir.
Right. Well, and the point of what they were trying to say, that this is the High Republic, and what they were trying to put together is that this is the Republic at its height of power. Now, granted, again, I think that putting it 200 years before essentially the fall of the Republic is, again, a mistake. I think that it takes away from one of we'll discuss in some of the character breakdowns, where it takes away from what they could be. I think the height of power should have been maybe 1,000 years before, essentially, yes, or 600 to 1,000 years. So it allows things to have its peak and then allowing it to somewhat decay. There's a word in this first, on her description, where I think it's actually a really important word. It's just not used right. It says where she says she is compassionate, not dogmatic, but always will sacrifice herself. This was an opportunity for them to actually make a dogmatic character. That was kind of what the problem with the Jedi started to be, is they became kind of dogmatic, very tied into super, super hard ways. That's why a lot of people were excited before the Last Jedi, actually. They were hoping to have a gray Jedi, kind of a gray Jedi Luke Skywalker. Not so much a gray Jedi in the sense of morally
just at least
gray.
Someone who would break
the Jedi code.
I mean, yeah, and I think we've discussed this before, and I was sending it to you before even we got on this, but it's like, the Jedi code itself really isn't dogmatic. I mean, it's kind of it's a little haiku. I mean, it's a poem. The Sith code, the Jedi code aren't. The only times they've made it dogmatic was for storylines, and it was Yoda, like I said, saying to Anakin pretty much like, well, Jedi are never supposed to love, which is said like was a very prequel thing, and then they've carried it on since then. But it's like the original trilogy never makes any mention that Jedis never would have love, but then they made sure that was really the sticking point to make sure Anakin kind of has his issues of why he falls. And then the one that Yoda does say is to Luke, it's a line that we all quote all the time, but fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And then his second part that he doubles down on and says, once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your future. And there's never a sense of anyone ever going, but you can overcome that. It doesn't. I never liked that for them there was never redemption. I think is like maybe what the original trilogy, Yoda says there's no redemption, but then Luke's actions prove that that's incorrect. But then the trilogy's dogmatic is the stupid, well, you're never supposed to love, so that way you can have your problem with Padme, and then kind of doubling down on that, going like, and then you started down the dark path, and then you can never be redeemed. Once you take one bad step, you're past that line forever. And this isn't, and what gets to me is it's like, this isn't a line of like saying a Jedi, like, you murdered in cold blood. You've stepped well beyond the Jedi code line. This is, you cared about another person. Well, you shouldn't do that, because that can lead to fear, and that can lead to hate, and that's going to lead to this, and that's going to lead to this, and we're never going to actually deal with the problem. We're just going to tell you to always run away from the problem.
Well, and that's where in the prequel movies, I haven't finished the Clone Wars series, so I can't really say. I think the best version of the Jedi is actually the 2003 animated Cartoon Network.
In the sense of power and them truly acting as themselves, I would say the Clone Wars animated series does a great job of at least kind of giving you a better understanding of, like, not an understanding of the Jedi, but at least get to see them, different Jedi in different situations, and get to see different styles of command for them too, like the ones who actually care a little bit more about the clones and are actually truly honest and kind of very Jedi-like, and then the ones who are more like, oh, you guys are clones, you are indispensable. It's not that we don't care about you, but we see you as a tool.
Right. And that's where I think that, again, that the Jedi Order wasn't a perfect order in the sense of what it was. And so I think that these characters being perfect, they take away from, like I said, this first character is pretty much, let's take some of the descriptors, the brightest, the most noble. She
what was it,
always
the
puts
exemplar
everyone
of knighthood, the noble example of Jedihood. I mean, it's like saying like you were the creme de la creme.
The most noble. There's nothing in here that even gives a challenge to this character in my face, in the sense of, that's why the dogmatic one going, oh, not she's not dogmatic, and you're like, well, actually that'd be a great flaw for her to have, is to be overly dogmatic and be like, oh, this is the rules. And I could see that prior to 200 years that actually makes sense in the space. So
right.
And I will comment briefly on the art style.
And why does dogmatic have to be such a negative connotation in this sense? Because it's like, with any belief system, at least in my mind, you can disagree, but it's like in any belief system, by definition, there's a sense of dogmaticness to it, because there's certain things that you're taking as truth and based on that might not have quote unquote evidence, but you're taking things as personally true. So I already kind of get, it's like, I don't know if maybe like they want to. I understand that dogmatic is usually used kind of negatively, but as a word, it's not. If I remember correctly, like Webster's definition of it is just someone
inclined to lay down principles as incontrovertibly true. So it's essentially saying what your perspective is true, which is, again, it is very,
which can be a problem, Jedi. But it doesn't have to be a problem, and that's where
True.
Also too, like I said, that's where I don't always like. I don't always agree that, like, they're always trying to put in a negative context where it's like, well, there might be certain things that are true beliefs that might not have, maybe can't fully, but it's like, but it is the truth.
Yeah, but I would say with the Jedi, the Jedi being dogmatic, I think, is actually very accurate, though, because the Jedi were very
I would agree.
The Jedi themselves, even though I disagree, I said the whole love thing I think is weird. I dislike that inside the space, but the sense of light and dark is very part of what it is. Like the structure of the Star Wars universe is very much light and dark. I think there's I don't know if someone else, I can't remember if I talked about this analogy or someone else had thought about it before, and I also added to it. But essentially it was like almost think of a triangle, and so a triangle is shaped like this, and then essentially the way I kind of viewed it as, you have your light over here and your dark over here. And so you put your character in this space on here and you put them in the middle, kind of. And the more powerful in the Force they became, the more steeped in the triangle they would be.
I gotcha.
So if you start tilting...
You're kind of closer to threshold as you go up
the
power scale in that sense.
So when you're really powerful or really, connected to the Force and all that kind of things, if you start trending down this, it takes less for you to stumble into the dark side type thing versus an average person who does something. You're like, okay, you're not all of a sudden a dark side user. Again, I don't.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
That's how I always saw the temptation, the dark side, in the sense of it, like when you fell down it. I still don't love how Vader became Vader over in 2 seconds, but
but so that's my thing, and maybe that's just also my own spirituality. That's like there's always redemption. So that the Jedi never want to have, like, always kind of say that there can't be redemption, like I said, and that's kind of Luke's big point of him is saying, everyone else is saying your dad, Anakin, is dead. There's only Darth Vader. There's only this dark entity, and Luke's whole point is, I think you guys are wrong. I think I can save my father. There is always redemption, which is why the original trilogy obviously is, I think the best, obviously, but it's like, that's what I think is the huge good point, because there is this sense of the most fallen man that you could think of, this murderer of all of that, and then you find out, the prequel as you do, it's like, wow, but he could be redeemed,
right?
And I always like a story of redemption, and then they never want to.
No, I like it too.
They never want to give that anymore. It seems like I said, they always want to be very hard line until this, because then they're trying to say there's not dogmatic, or gray.
Well,
exactly.
And so I will make this is like off topic. I'm not a huge fan of this art style. It's like pastel oil paint style.
Oh, I know.
I don't hate the clothing designs per se. I don't like this pose.
She totally looks like Jodie Whittaker. Sorry.
That I know. But I will say I do not like the
does.
Faces. The face, I wish they had some better detail, especially this third character here. Like it looks like her face. It looks like she's supposed to be scarred, or is her hair cut in like a modern
I think her hair's
haircut.
cut. It's that modern haircut.
But her left eye, or right eye on her, but looking at the left hand screen.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like shadowing,
Yeah, it looks she looks proportionally. They didn't do a very good job of like the character. So we'll go back to the next other character. Oops, oh, this is lagging.
Well, it's like, and I also laugh how it's like they're very. I don't know, because it's like.
I mean, like the religious robes.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand what it. Yeah, I mean like that. But I was also gonna say like, especially like that girl that you were just showing down there. It's like, I mean, that's like pretty much like Anakin's outfit for a female.
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, like not this, it's like if it's 200 years before, I think you guys would have a little bit different of maybe robes or different, you know, styles. Like,
you know, I'm okay
like
with
they're kind of do clearly because they're showing more whites than they're showing browns.
Yeah,
I am noticing like there seems like there's a lot more light, bright colors, very, very royal and pure, almost looking colors instead of the kind of the more dirtied. Other than, you know, because Obi-Wan was white, but
you know, yeah, the hard thing with the Star Wars universe in that part is the Star Wars universe is a very old universe, if that makes sense. It's kind of one of those universes that doesn't really evolve very quickly in the sense of it, in the sense of it doesn't really progress, because we know what technology existed, you know, 10,000 years prior. You know, you had the forge technology. So Empire, what it kind of seems like empires kind of rise and then collapse, but they're very slow and big. You know, they're you know, but they don't. There's a certain technological zenith inside of Star Wars that you kind of hit, and then that's where you stop, pretty much. You might gain more political power and stuff like that, but there's not really a higher level. Any higher level races, I think, are actually more spiritually higher level. Like I said, I think that goes more the Clone War.
It's not really something that you even really touched on.
And that's the fantasy part.
Star Wars never goes deep into their universe,
tech,
to be honest.
Yeah, and that's the tech side, and that's because it's fantasy. You know, in the end, it's a fantasy universe, right? It's kind of That's the sci-fi fantasy element of it. But so we'll go to the second character here, Loden Greatstorm. Again, just too many like positive traits of these characters.
Well, it's like he's gonna be he's the wisest old master, but he has a sense of humor, and I'm like, oh, first off, that is so like here's where we already start off with generic. Like the first character is a Mary Sue, she just sounds straight like a Mary Sue. But then the second one that she
obviously we don't know yet, but given the gear of what they put in there, yeah, she's gonna fall into that category. Well, I mean, literally, when you say the bestest of the best and the best of everything,
and she's perfect and she's compassionate and she never does anything. I mean, it's like you're pretty much saying she never is gonna do anything wrong, and you're supposed to enjoy your character, and you're like, like I said, and as I already put in there, a character who's already like that in Star Wars is Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan really is the epitome of what a Jedi should be throughout Star Wars.
And we were trying to compare. So you'll see our notes here. We have other characters from other franchises in here. And there's probably other ones we'll think of. But the idea is, what is a character that they're kind of basing this off, but that's like not as perfect as they are. Again, the Obi-Wan's Kenobi and Aragorn from Lord of the Rings kind of character, kind of your noble leader. Still not perfect in the sense of everything he does is perfect. But he had where his imperfection came from was his character flaw, or in the sense of him not wanting to be king, or his resistance, or his self-doubt, those kind of things inside the character. There's more layers to them than just perfect.
Feeling the weight of possibly having to have the crown. I mean, it was like the idea of believing that he could have the crown was to him, his cross to bear. I mean, and he was fearful of it.
Yeah, and so this Loden Greatstorm, Loden, it's kind of an odd character again to say so much things about it. The best teachers. One of the best, because again, we have Yoda still exists in the space here, and he's still been around for a while. Again, I think your Kung Fu Panda, Oogway.
Oh, I had to put that one in there because I was trying to think of something that was like out, but I was like, you know what, this is exactly him. It's the wiser one who has that sense of humor and always trying to teach. Like I said, it's so cookie cutter. All these characters are cookie cutter, but then they sound like they're supposed to be the perfect. It's like, why wouldn't he be the more, or if you're not gonna have Avar be dogmatic, fine.
Well, you'll notice that none of these
wouldn't maybe this guy be the stern one?
Well, they have no second layer. Why would he be humorous? Yeah, well, they have no second layer. Like, there's no conflicting layer to their like. It's kind of like fire. You need your oxygen and water. You need your oxygen, or you need your fuel, your oxidizer, and heat. Right. And I feel like these characters are so one-dimensional. They're going to be like, oh, what's his conflict? They don't give you anything on that with conflict-wise. Then we move to our third one. Let me switch over to the other screen here. And, oops.
Yeah, like I said, Greatstorms just sounds like he's going to be very one-dimensional.
Yeah, the teacher type. Oh, that was there.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's like it sounds like he's gonna have everything. He's someone's gonna do something, get mad, and he's gonna probably chuckle, make a joke, and then go, "But young one, this is what you must learn," and that's gonna be every single one of his panels for his comic books.
Yeah, and this feels like
ending everyone with a ha ha ha, like Kit Fisto, who was already Kit Fisto wasn't a Twi'lek, so, but
yeah,
you had Kit Fisto, he's the green guy who's got the long tentacles everywhere in the comic books, and in the he dies like super quick in the third one, even though he's supposed to be like a master Jedi, but he's always smiling.
Yeah, they killed him. Yes, I know. That's funny. So we have our third one, a young firebrand Jedi, great future, quick-witted, impulsive. She's only been a few weeks, but she's still starstruck, and you're just like, again, it
are these online connection things, like meet your true love kind of stuff? Because that's like how some of these feel like these are the most like perked up, like if I was to describe myself as Shepard, it's like, athletic build with gleaming Fabio, brunette hair kind of things, like perfect at this and this, a wonderful person who will take care of their other. I mean, it's like this is how these read. These don't read as characters that feel like they're going to be dimensional.
This was supposed I feel like this character is definitely like a self-insert. Well, no, a self-insert too, like of the writers. They're like, this is everything I want to be. Oh, if only she was self-confident in herself. And you're like, now granted, we just brought about self-confident Aragorn, but there's a different type of self-confidence versus someone who Aragorn was like 100 years old and he was still struggling with that as a character. This person, they're like, oh, she's 22 and she wants to, you're like self-confident. And you're like,
like, okay.
We just, and again,
they're just,
on their own, these wouldn't be
decisions.
things. Well, and on their own, there wouldn't be an issue. But it's when you know what they're doing beforehand, even like this guy, it's like, oh, the two
his
powerhouses.
His is the most generic. His is the most generic of all of them. I mean, he literally just says, like, the only thing that's important about him is it says a well-respected master, strong in the force, and a natural leader. That's all that's important that they stayed in there. Like, out of all the cookie cutter characters, it's like, oh, so you're every single, military commander in a movie. You're every single,
right. And I mean, it's something here. I don't know. And I know
the cross guard. I saw that. Yes, I saw the cross guard.
I know Shadiversity. I totally get where Shadiversity comes from on the cross guard stuff. I understand. So if you ever watch this, man, you probably
I'm sorry. I think it's stupid. There's no reason at all.
The problem with the cross guard with lightsabers is, first of all, if the material is strong enough to resist a blade cut, because we know that in general lightsabers, we've seen them get cut with lightsabers. Right. So either the material
the hilt itself isn't lightsaber.
So either material
resistant.
here, either this material is lightsaber resistant, or it's just going to cut through it if it hits it, which makes it completely useless. And the other problem is, in the sense of lightsabers, since they're a round blade, essentially, with the sword, you have your cutting edge. You're like, I'm cutting or not cutting. Lightsabers, there's no, like, you don't have a perception of like, oh, what cuts differently. So it would suck if you're fighting with somebody on that and you turned your blade wrong and you hit yourself with the hilt or something like that. Like, it's just kind of the weapon it is.
Because clearly his looks like they're not going I think they got enough crap from the Kylo one, because that doesn't have actually emitters and lightsabers coming out the side. They just made it actual, just, not
physical,
pommels,
right?
But like physical things on there. But then you just sit there and go, well, it makes it almost even worse, because like you said, it's like it's clearly made out of the same material as the hilt, which, as you said, the hilts have never been able to block their own lightsaber strikes. They all get cut in half every single time. If you're not cutting off the hand, you're cutting off the the lightsaber. So to have this now, it's like just why? I mean, it just doesn't make. Go for something. If you want to design a new lightsaber, pick a cool different of the hilt itself, but don't worry about the cross guard. Like, that is the most.
I'm just not a fan of it.
Do something else. Make a fun looking emitter. Make something else that's crazy. It's like we've seen all these different ones that you can come up with, but then this is like, okay, there's no.
Or make the emitter.
There's no logical sense to it. There's no.
Or make the emitter
sense to it.
360, right? So if it was like the cross guard, it's like more like a dish.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like something like again, or.
I mean, that would be kind of interesting, like you see, because I mean, so it's like a rounded, but it's like even then, it's like
it's the fantasy
man,
part of
hurt
it.
yourself.
Well, and again, it's the fantasy element of Star Wars where you're like, it's lightsabers. They're freaking one of the coolest weapons ever. We get that, in real life.
It was cool because it was simple. It's a rod of light that you get to hold and just swing around and cut people's arms off. Like, I don't need anything else more important about that.
Yeah, it did interesting things. So,
I can change the color of the crystal. Then I'm really in. It's like, I don't need to be like, you know what? This lightsaber really needs to make it perfect. It should look more like a normal sword by putting a crossguard on it.
Right. So this is our other fan or a writer insert character here. She is also the bestest at 16. So she's going to be the prodigy character most likely.
Starstruck.
Yeah, there's.
Was she starstruck, or is it the other one that's starstruck?
The other one's starstruck.
It's the other one. It's the one that I said is because these two characters, I agree with you. I think they're kind of the writer's plant, but this character and then the first female character are like Ahsoka at her beginning. In this one, and
I can see that.
And then her later kind of version of her character as the Kiva chick. I mean, it's like those mostly Ahsoka. Although
I can see that.
I did put as a comparison, at least to the Kiva, is Deku from My Hero Academia, because that kind of fits that similar self-doubt. Has a lot of power, has a future, has a strong future ahead of him, but he just actually needs to trust himself, and especially since he's starstruck around the legends around him, like All Might. So I was like, okay,
right.
there's
something
I can
there.
So
I can see what you're saying there.
But I agree with you. I think these two characters, Keeve and Vern, for sure, are kind of like the
self-inserts.
The self-inserts, yeah. It's like the vicarious characters that you can live through as the audience member, as the viewer or the reader, I guess.
And this, like I said, again, it's one of those things where there's no depth to what's given. And I get this is just a quick little thing. But when this is the level of work put into your beginning parts of stuff, it kind of shows you, in my opinion, where the work's going to go into the long term on everything. If this is the initial part, and they're like, this is the level of work we're putting into this. You're like, wow, these characters are super boring. Like you said, they're very generic characters, and there's nothing in here that I go, wow.
I'd put it this way. If I was writing a script, or if I was doing a show and I wanted to have a new show coming out, a sitcom or something like that, and it's supposed to have 5 people, this would be my first generic run through of it. It's like, oh, you need to have the smart,
right,
caring one. I need the nerdy one who's kind of self-doubt but is extremely smart and knows what to do. I need the very brash, strong person. It's like, that's exactly what they did is just like, the typical 5 people you would put, or the 4 people that you would put in like a show, because it's like, well, I need that, let me have the smart one, the brash one, the the caring one, and then the intelligent but self-doubting one. Oh, look, that's exactly what they did here. I mean, it's like that's how cookie cutter this is to me. I keep saying cookie cutter, but it's like it's because it's true.
Yeah, no, it's very generic stuff, and again, it kind of has that vibe of the story should be bad. I mean, that's it sucks, and I don't really even, like I said, it's one of those things where you're going through it and you're like, wow, there's nothing about these characters that makes me go, well, yeah, let's see what this guy's about.
Well, it's like, and I guess maybe too, what's kind of tough about this is we're hearing that we're supposed to be getting some of the best and brightest of the Jedi. So where's the conflict? And I know it's like, I mean, clearly, obviously, we don't know, but it's like, with not even a comparison to know who are their Sith around, what's the enemy, what's their conflict then? So at least I can kind of maybe understand why they're the best and brightest, because they're fighting the darkest and the most evil.
That's a good point. So what have they honed? No, that's a good point. What have they honed their skills on? No, that's a good point.
Like exactly.
Where have they cut their teeth on that made them so good? That's actually a pretty good question, because usually in the sense of what, when you're in war,
or has already been has a part of the reason for Avar having so strong of not being dogmatic is because there's been a failure, and there's been another schism in the Jedi that's created Sith because of dogmatic views or stupidity that slipped in again. So that's why she wants to be that way.
And it can't be Sith.
I don't know. Maybe that's where they're gonna go.
Well, they can't do Sith because they said in the movie there hasn't been Sith for 1,000 years, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I mean, the Sith can't be the main.
So, I mean, at that point, you don't. Well, I mean, technically, there's always been there's
2. Yes,
and there's just been the rule of 2, so they've been hiding. But it would also be, because here's the thing, you can't do that because it has to be Plagueis then, because Plagueis
Right,
would
well,
be the
and it
only
has
one,
to be public-
or his predecessor.
What's the other one? There's another Bane. Is he around this time frame?
Well, no, because Bane was the original one who started the Rule of Two. So he
Got
was,
it. He was right.
like,
Yeah.
he
So
was
there
pretty much
could
that
be-
1,000 years ago.
So there could be. I mean, they can have the.
There's a few
characters playing in
videos
the-
that I
can
know
play-
of go through it.
Yeah, they can. Well, I'm saying they can have the Sith players play in the background a little bit, but they can't have them known by
They
the
can't be-
leads of being
Yeah.
Sith, because that would take away from later revelations when they're like, "Oh my God, the Sith are back."
Exactly.
So they can never can know that, especially
And at the
200
same
years
point,
prior.
if there's always the Sith hiding in the background, kind of being the Moriarty of it all, that's also going to be really annoying as a writing tool.
That's
to say,
true.
like, well, everything, because it's like, oh, but it's always the Sith in the background, but we
Everything
can't
is
tell you
planned.
because they can't know, because then it ruins everything else. It's like, then why would you make that the bad guy? Like,
Yeah, like I said,
why
that's
would you
why
write
again
yourself into
I
that
say that they
box?
should just have gone forward far enough ahead of time.
Exactly.
Like,
They should have said 1,000 years after Return of the, or Last Skywalker, and then do whatever the hell you want to do with it.
Yeah, whatever characters, you're not tied to anything at that point. The problem here is you are closely tied in the fact that you're like, okay, I can't do whatever I want. Now, granted, sometimes constrictions help, but again, I don't think they're doing good constrictions. They're going to do garbage ones. But it's like, oh, we're stuck here, and they're going to ignore
Well, like
stuff.
you
I
said,
don't know.
if anyone knew about the Sith, then Yoda would know about the Sith.
Correct, because the only way they can do it is a character can find out and they kill the character.
Yeah.
Oh no, we found out. Oh, they're dead. Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can really have a character find out, but then they're dead within an episode, right? Because you can't be. I mean, we know that interstellar communication happens. You can talk to anybody from anywhere, so you can't be like, oh, cool. They couldn't get. They were.
Oh, they were
out
too far out in the outer rim, and 200 years ago they didn't have that same exact space communicator that went as far and as quickly as the ones that you see in the movies. Convenient.
Right. Yeah, especially since we saw that kind of technology in
The transporter's out, Captain. Oh, of
Right.
course it is.
Well, so especially since we saw that kind of technology in the Old Republic, where there's extent that's
yeah.
a different.
Well, that's
Old
the other thing
Republic-
too. Yeah, they've put themselves in between the Old Republic and then the movies.
Yeah, I don't know why you put yourself there. Again, it's like why
Now,
would
technically,
you put yourself there?
most of the Old Republic, they still haven't technically made all of it canon. Now, they made their references to Revan,
True.
so they've done a few things where they've given a bone out to the audience. But I also want to say that just because someone says, "Oh yeah," they make a reference to Revan, doesn't mean then that they're
they have no respect for
KOTOR
that.
is then canon. It just
Yeah,
means
no,
that they
you're
want to
right.
mention that name. Doesn't mean that history of that character is anything the
Correct.
same as what it's supposed to be, or what we think it is from playing KOTOR and KOTOR 2.
Correct, because that's like saying that Luke's still in the stories, and you're like, yeah, but that's not the Luke that was in the EU material, and that's not the other character that went there.
Exactly.
Oh, you brought in this one element. They're like, oh, Thrawn's canon again, and you're like, yeah, but is it the same storylines, same elements? They
Right.
can't bring Luke's
He's
wife
only
into
as
it.
real as what they're showing in the new canonized stuff. That's his only character then.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I mean, in the end, I'm not going to read into this stuff. I know that's like counter
that's
too.
exactly it for me too. Unfortunately.
I'll read the cliff notes on it and see if it goes anywhere interesting. If someone goes, "Oh my God, this is really good," maybe I'll take a look.
Well, here's the thing: if it's really good, then Disney's going to try to make a movie or a series.
Yes, we'll get a movie on it. Yes.
So I mean, that's pretty much, it's like if they're measuring
what's going on
success
in the
is
world
good
right
enough,
now?
then
Well, with what's going on in the world right now, who knows? Because that's the crazy. We'll talk about it in another video. But the crazy thing is the number of series that Disney has talked about doing. In fact, the Obi-Wan series is supposed to come out now at 22.
is it still a series or is it back to a movie? Because I've heard them flip flop
Series.
that it was going to be a movie, then
No, I
it was a
think it's gonna be a
series, and they went back to a movie.
I think it's gonna be a
So
series
now it's back to a series. Okay.
in like 2022. So far
Okay.
out. So far out. Like that's like 2 years away. And I was like, to me, I'm like, and that was the series. They're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong here. And then they fire everyone off at the day before they start filming. And you're like,
because and part of the reason was they said, oh wow, a lot of these scripts look very similar to The Mandalorian. But you guys had it all set up years before, right?
oh yeah,
Right.
it's
Wrong.
again, this is their opportunity. This Lucasfilm, this is your opportunity while you guys are on furlough out there and doing your thing and things aren't filming. Read your scripts.
Watch some of.
Read your script. Read your own scripts. Watch every Star Wars property out there, so you know what you're at least dealing with. I
would even suggest watch a few of the fan-made Star Wars crap, because there's people out there. I wouldn't say
There
crap.
has-
Excuse me, because I wouldn't say crap, because it's like there's been a few things that aren't too bad of people trying to come up with something that I'm like, I think you've seen the was it the redo of the New Hope fight.
Yeah, that was well done.
Kind of
yeah,
that was a cool
good.
one. But there's another one that I think it's called The Apprentice, and it's actually a fan-made story of someone kind of doing like a Darth Maul story and following it, where like he has an apprentice, and then there's two Jedis kind of fighting him. I could be wrong, but I think one of the guys actually might be. No, I don't think it is. I don't remember if it was those guys. You remember like it was the R2D2 or something like that. It was like that old fight like years ago where those two guys pretending to do like a lightsaber fight in
I don't remember that. I know
okay,
there was one.
But yeah, it's called The Apprentice, if I remember correctly, on YouTube, and it's actually like it might be like 20 minutes long, but it's like, I mean, they put some time into it.
Yeah, no, there's some stuff that people put time into. That's the hard thing nowadays. I'm like, go do your own thing, because as much as I like that you're doing great work, go make your own property and maybe people will follow you.
Yeah, it's like go make your own property, like call them laser swords, and then
right.
just say,
they're lifesavers. I always thought that when I was a kid, I always thought they were lifesavers. I think it was until I was like 12 until I was like, oh, they're lightsabers. They're not candy.
Lightsabers. Oh, light. I think it wasn't until I actually learned the word, or like realized what the word saber was, and then I went, oh. It's a
lifesaver. Like lifesaver makes sense. It's a lifesaver. You're like, it saves my life.
Like, they're great candy, and they're a weapon.
It's great. I really think we go to the store and like, I'm gonna buy a lifesaver, and you're like, and you're like, probably our parents are probably like, what? Or these kids don't know what words are.
Are they smart? I don't know.
I don't know.
We've been showing them too much of this Star Wars and Star Trek and Stargate, and now they're thinking.
Right. Well, Stargate, yeah. That's true, because you would have been a little kid when Stargate came out. Yeah. So
I was 7, because I think it was 1999, the first season.
Something like that, yeah. So, well, thank you everyone for joining us today on our quick little random thoughts on some of the Star Wars stuff happening. We'll keep you up to date on it. We have other videos coming out soon. I've been traveling and working again and trying to get some stuff done. So it's been tax season, a lot of good stuff. So knocking that out, it's a little delayed on stuff. And what else? Let's see. There's some theater talk coming out with, some movies discussing some of my predictions on what will happen in movie theaters, some discussions on comic books coming up. I think there's been a lot of changes in the industry. I think some could be positive, some could be negative. But we're going to check it out, do some discussions, some think pieces, and have a great day. If you like our movies, our videos, well, you like our movies too, but if you like our videos, please give us a like or subscribe. That'd be awesome. Help share it around the channel and stuff like that, and we'll bring more stuff. Have a great day.